Kia Myers is a Seneca student working towards a certificate in independent music production. Her goal was to further her education in the upcoming months, but the recent changes to the Ontario Student Assistant Program made by the Ford government has put that on pause for her.
Until I'm broken.
OSAP and their changes with saying that they've made a 10% decrease on the tuitions is something that may seem very large, but it's not even tax, and it doesn't affect me as much. It doesn't really benefit me all in all. It's still a lot of money, and having to pay that money in a shorter amount of time after I'm done school is something that is stressful, and it might not help me in the end.
While the Ontario government promises a 10% decrease in tuition costs, they have cut free tuition for low-income families and the 6-month repayment grace period upon graduation.
I'm going to be graduating with a huge debt, and I'm really worried about that.
Because a lot of people depend on OSAP, and I don't think he understands that a majority of the families in Canada are middle to lower.
And the grace period in India is 1 year. You have 1 year to get a job and then start paying off your tuition. Expecting students to pay it off right out of college, that seems, that's unrealistic.
I think I would have furthered my education, but because I'm not feeling as stable from the changes, I don't think I'm going to be making those decisions now. Currently, I don't think it's benefiting much people because there's a lot of protests and complaints of this change being made.
With consistent backlash from students across the province, the government is still not responding.
Okay, you won't meet with the Canadian Federation of Students by ourselves. How about you meet with us and OCUFA and a variety of other groups that work in this sector as well? Radio silence. So since the announcement was made in January, we've only been in conversation with bureaucrats that work for the minister to understand the technicalities behind these announcements, but none of them have been direct meetings with the minister.
But how are students planning to adapt to these changes?
Well, I think because we represent students across the province, the reality for each student is also really unique. But across the board, what we're hearing is that students are really concerned about how they're going to make ends meet from year to year, but also what it's going to look like after they graduate and having to, work low-wage jobs and actually pay back those student loans.
I'm going to be starting to work near April, which is when my program ends. So as soon as that starts, I'll be working full-time, and I'll be trying to get into my internship.
If the government was willing to meet with us, what I would really talk about are the ways that we could revert back to a more efficient model to ensure that students are actually benefiting from the Ontario Student Assistance Program, but pushing and continuing to talk about free education.
They could just explain more and just actually understand how this may impact students, instead of just thinking, okay, we're going to make a 10% reduction, but not looking at how it can affect everybody in total.
But if you're truly a government for the people, you should be taking direction from students and from communities that are actually impacted by these decisions.
If you would like to learn more on how to get involved in taking action, you can visit cfsontario.ca. I'm Tennille Lawrence for Say News Toronto.